In today's edition of NHL Trade Talk, we're discussing Erik Karlsson, Evander Kane, the St. Louis Blues, the Nashville Predators, and the Minnesota Wild. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. On this channel, we review and discuss all 31 NHL teams with an unbiased opinion. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Jumping into the latest NHL trade rumors, let's see what's on the go here. One team we haven't talked a lot about is the Minnesota Wild. Obviously, the Wild haven't had the greatest season, been a little bit of up and down year, and it looks like they might be interested in dumping some salary if things aren't looking like they're going to make the playoffs. I was reading this morning that some players who might be on the block with the Wild would include Marcus Foligno, Tyler Ennis, and possibly even Charlie Coyle. These are guys that might be looking to be moved out in order to reduce their salary so they can retool for next season if things aren't looking good for the Wild in the playoff picture. And as of right now, there's certainly no guarantees they're going to be in, so it's certainly something to keep your eye on. The Wild might become sellers, and those would be the guys that'd be most likely looking to move out here by the deadline. So keep your eye on the Minnesota Wild. Another name we've seen lots about is Evander Kane. According to TSN's Darren Dreger, things are heating up on the Kane front. He didn't seem to indicate a deal was imminent, but indicated that it may not wait until the deadline and things may happen sooner than later. In my opinion, this is strictly my opinion, the Pittsburgh Penguins I think have to be the front runners here. I know Jim Rutherford's seemed to be pretty keen on this player, and I'm pretty sure if he really wants to, he'll figure out a way to get it done. Obviously, there's been other teams linked to Evander Kane, but I think the Penguins are the front runner. Another team that I wouldn't rule out here, we haven't talked a lot about, and they haven't been linked to a particular player per se, but I'd keep your eye on the Nashville Predators. It wouldn't surprise me to see them try to swoop in on Evander Kane and figure something out. If it's not Kane, it might be another top scoring forward, as I wouldn't be surprised with the amount of injuries that team has had that they might be looking to add a forward here for some extra depth as we go into the playoffs. Now, I would fully suspect they would key on a top 6 scoring forward, but I guess we'll see. But the Nashville Predators is certainly another team to keep your eyes on, as they probably look to add before the playoff run. Now let's take a look at the St. Louis Blues as well. The St. Louis Blues have had lots of rumors floating around, but obviously haven't made any moves as of yet. We've heard for quite a while that they were very interested in Mike Hoffman. We've also heard the same earlier on Max Pacioretty. We've also heard the same on some other guys. But a couple of things that we can kind of narrow down if the Blues are going to make a move, what it's likely going to be. According to some comments from Doug Armstrong, general manager of the Blues, as well as a recent St. Louis Blues game that I was watching and listening to their local commentators, it looks as though they definitely aren't interested in a rental player. So if they pick up any forwards, they're going to want a player with term. So obviously, there's not going to be any of the pending UFAs. And based on what I was seeing as well, it looks as though they would probably prefer a right shot forward over a left-hand shot, that they would probably complement their existing group of players a little bit better. However, I think one player that the Blues have been linked to is Mike Hoffman. Yes, he's a left shot, but he does have the term. And I think if it boils down to it, I think they would probably figure out a way to make that work. But keep your eye on the St. Louis Blues. Obviously, they should be getting Jaden Schwartz back soon. That should give them a big boost. He was off to a tremendous start this year and developed great chemistry with Braden Shen. So as they get Schwartz back and get those two together, they very well may not bother adding a top forward. I think they will definitely add some depth or something for the playoffs, but hard to say. I mean, it looks like they also got a little bit of a goalie controversy going on right now. Carter Hutton looks to be starting again tonight for the Blues. Jake Allen's been riding the pine, and Carter Hutton's been playing fantastic for them. So we'll see how long that keeps up. I mean, it's good for the Blues to have two good goalies. This was last January as well. We saw Jake Allen go into a bit of a slump. So I'm not sure if it's just a bad time of year for him or what it is. But Carter Hutton's been picking up the slack, and they may have a goalie controversy brewing on their hands. So I guess time will tell as we get later into the season. See if Allen can pick up his game. Now, moving on to another player of note here is Erik Karlsson of the Ottawa Senators. There's all kinds of reports surfacing between last night and today about the interview that Pierre Dorion has done. Pierre Dorion was asked what his priorities were with this team, and as they begin to retool, obviously he hasn't made any moves yet, but a lot of people fully expect the Senators to make some moves before the deadline as they decide how to plan for their future here. Dorion did mention that him and his scouting staff they have plans in place on how they feel this season could go. Although he hasn't given up on his team yet, he feels they have enough time to get their act together. Although time is running out as each game goes by with another loss piling up, that's certainly going to make things that much harder on them. But when he was asked about Erik Karlsson, he did say his first priority was to sign him. However, he said if a team comes along and wows him with a tremendous offer, it's something he'd have to consider. And even the greatest player of all time, Wayne Gretzky's been traded on 2 different occasions. So obviously we saw a lot of media outlets take that and run with it, that Erik Karlsson's on the trading block. Seems a little bit crazy to me. Myself, I don't see it happening myself. I will say this regarding Erik Karlsson. I cannot see a trade going down between now and the deadline. If a deal like that happened, it would definitely happen in the offseason. They are going to try and sign him. I think if Erik Karlsson has any concerns about remaining a Senator for the rest of his career, it's going to be with the ownership group. I think it's pretty obvious based on how everything has gone with Eugene Melnyk. I think it's fair to say that a lot of Senators have concerns about ownership and Melnyk particularly, and the long-term plan of the franchise with him at the helm in order to make this team into a winner, and are willing to spend the appropriate amount of money to keep their top players in town. So that's something I'm sure is going to need to be addressed. But Karlsson has said his first priority is to sign and stay, and so did Dorion. So I'm not sure why all these media outlets are running with the big news that Erik Karlsson is available. That's not what was said at all. If you don't know Pierre Dorion very well and haven't listened to him speak quite a bit, he tends to be, that's kind of his version of his sense of humor when he brought up the part about Wayne Gretzky. Yes, maybe it's bad choice of words. He certainly gave some fuel to the fire to the media there. But Senators fans, if you're all worried about Karlsson being on the block, I wouldn't worry about it. I think there is still some concern long term. I don't see anything happening right now. If a deal like that were to go down, it would definitely happen in the offseason. And I think it's fair to say that Dorion's going to make every attempt to sign him up to a long-term extension this summer. And if things aren't going well, then you just never know. However, that's a story for another day. That's not a story for today. And anybody who's out there running saying Karlsson's on the block, I think you're crazy to say that, and you're absolutely foolish. Could it happen? Maybe someday. I don't see it happening between now and the trade deadline at all. But that's just me. Don't forget as well to follow us on social media. You'll see our link to our Twitter account right here. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram. You'll find all of our social media account links in the description below, so please check us out there. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, as I mentioned before, consider subscribing. We talk hockey here every day, all 31 teams, unbiased opinion. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll be catching you next time.